More than 100 Politico staffers are still upset and demanding an apology from the editor at the website-led conservative author and podcaster Ben Shapiro guest write one day of the Playbook column, despite the fact that such liberals as MSNBC's Chris Hayes and CNN's Don Lemon took turns, and plans to feature other conservatives were dropped. Shapiro tweeted that the complaints were about woke staffers cudgeling editors into never reaching across the aisle again. Joining us now to talk about journalism and free speech is Jonah Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Dispatch and a Fox News contributor. Jonah, why are all these Politico staffers still upset 2 weeks later over Ben Shapiro, a conservative who said some controversial things, but yet all these liberals filling in that column as well?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of different things going on here. One of it is I think Ben is largely right about this, there is a generational thing going on where younger liberals and I have to say, a lot of younger conservatives are pretty intolerant of dissenting points of view. And so at places like Atlantic, where Kevin Williamson, my friend Kevin Williamson had a job there for about a day before the younger staff went into revolt. It seems like something similar happened at Politico. There are a lot of people who live in bubbles on both sides of the aisle these days, and what the last thing they want to do is have their bubble punctured from within, and so they have tantrums. I think it's the exportation of campus culture into newsrooms.
Yeah, Bubbles is a good point. Well, all this ranges from the New York Times firing its editorial page editor over that Tom Cotton op-ed to a lot of journalists and pundits cheering Twitter and Facebook for permanently canceling Donald Trump's account. So is there an emerging alliance here in your view between big tech and some of these more woke or younger, you would say, liberals who are offended by having to hear or read conservative views, particularly at their own publication?
In a sense, yeah. It's certainly true that at big tech firms, the rank and file are going to be left-leaning, woke, whatever label we want to put on them. And so their instincts are going to catch right-wing talk that they hate much more quickly than problematic left-wing talk. But I have to be honest about this. This is an American problem. There is a vast and thriving right-wing cancel culture. There's a vast and thriving left-wing cancel culture. The only thing that makes them separate and different is the sociology of them, is that you have certain kinds of people at certain institutions who have different kinds of canceling. But President Trump was a huge fan of canceling people. He tried to have me fired from Fox and from National Review because he didn't like what I wrote. This is a problem that we have in America of just widespread intolerance for disagreement.
Just to follow up, he personally tried to have you fired from those two places?
On Twitter, I can report that he as president and as a candidate, expressed a burning desire to not see me on Fox anymore. And look, the other part of it is that, and he definitely tried to have me fired from National Review, which I left a while ago. But look, let me jump in. Donald Trump.
I understand. I want to broaden it because speaking of Fox, there are liberals at major outlets that are now saying, well, cable operators should drop Fox News or Fox shouldn't be allowed to exist. Now, we all know they're not talking about the news division, they're talking about certain opinion people whose views, rather than just saying, I think they're wrong and here's why, they want off the air.
Yeah, and I think the idea of bringing back the fairness doctrine is idiotic. I think a lot of these people don't even really understand how the fairness doctrine worked and that it doesn't really apply to cable anyway. But it's absolutely true that there are people who want to see, Fox nuked from orbit. And I think that's ridiculous. At the same time, it should not be surprising, and you're right to single out the news division as different, but it should not be surprising when people from the opinion division perpetuate lies about the election being stolen, who are more concerned about canceling Liz Cheney than they are about canceling Marjorie Taylor Greene, as you guys talked about a minute ago. This is a problem all over the place, and it's incumbent upon institutions on either side to police their own in responsible ways and turn things down a little bit and not push out misinformation and lies, lest you invite that kind of backlash, which would make everything worse.
Well, Washington Post columnist Max Boot writes the following. We need to shut down the influencers who radicalize people and set them on the path toward violence and sedition. So who decides who these awful people are and what gives them the power to shut them down?
Well, look, some of it is sort of social stigma and culture stuff, and I don't see eye to eye with Max on a lot of things. I think we can draw reasonable disagreements and distinctions between people who say lower taxes, more taxes, you shouldn't get rid of Abraham Lincoln as a name of the school, and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene who have endorsed conspiracy theories that say Hillary Clinton cut off the faces of babies and wore them like masks. People who call for objective violence. People who support clear and provable lies that incite people to violence. I think at the very least, as a matter of professional due diligence, you can condemn that kind of thing and not give it more air and more oxygen. And that goes for both sides of the aisle. It goes certainly for a lot of the Antifa stuff where CNN celebrated violence, where MSNBC celebrated violence, or at least gave permission structure for it in ways that they're harshly condemning now. There are double standards all over the place. I just think that there's a real moral panic on the right now about cancel culture and silencing only applying to conservatives when everybody is in the game and it's ruining the country and ruining our politics in short order.
Yeah, well, what really troubles me for most of my career, journalists were fierce defenders of free speech, and now I think ideology, whatever view it is, but right now I think we're seeing a lot aimed at the right, is in favor, I think, at times of suppressing free speech. Good conversation, Jonah Goldberg. Great to see you this Sunday.
Thanks, Zach.
After the break.